Thank you so much for listening to Five Live tonight. Really look forward to this hour every week. It's one of my highlights. And it is time for a bit of Monday musicology with a man whose extensive map of musical knowledge has taken him where the streets have no name, down the boulevard of broken dreams, and with the occasional detour along the road to nowhere. So great is his insight into the highways and byways of melody and lyrics that we could refer to him as Joe le Taxi. Instead, we call him this. Yep, it is Dr. Beat himself, Professor Joe Bennett from the Berklee College of Music in Boston. Every Monday, he widens our musical knowledge by taking a theme and explaining it with some great song choices, old and new, so we can find out a bit more about why we like the things we do and perhaps introduce us to something we haven't listened to before. This week, it's all about pentatonics. So, Joe, you may have some explaining to do. Help us out. Pentatonics.
Yes, I know you love a little bit of musical jargon, Gordon, so a new term that I don't think we've used on the show before. I actually wrote this on Twitter. I made a little blog post online saying this is the playlist we're going to have for tonight's show and so on, for people who wanted to get ahead of it. And I said, I do love pentatonics, and we're going to be talking about pentatonics on the show. And one Twitter user who I won't name, did respond saying, "Oh yeah, I love all those a cappella bands." So not Pentatonics with an X. That's the Texas Academic a cappella band. They are actually sort of named after the scale because there's 5 of them, and they spelled it with an X for, I can only assume, branding reasons. But no, the Pentatonics CS that we are talking about tonight, Gordon, is 5 notes per octave. That is to say, 5-note scales instead of the more usual diatonic scale that most music that we hear, certainly in the Western world, is all about, which is 7 notes per octave. So, to be honest, it's probably easier to play it. So, grab an electric guitar here is going to be a bit twangier. So if I take a scale of C, everyone knows a scale of C, anyone who ever did piano lessons, sounds like this. That's 1 octave, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you repeat, and then it goes around. The same thing higher. But if we take that scale, let me play it up here, and instead of playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we play 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and then the octave again. You get this very open sounding scale. And when you write melodies using those simple 5 notes and you omit the complexity of the 4th and 7th of the scale, there's some sort of magic can happen in a song. It just seems to become sort of timeless and ancient. And I won't nerd out on the deep reason in physics and the harmonic series why that should actually be the case, but the sort of TLDR version of that is pentatonics tend to be very good for writing catchy melodies. And as someone who's interested in analysing songwriting, I love a catchy melody, as you well know, Gordon.
Absolutely brilliant. And as always, Joe is going to present a series of songs that demonstrate the music theory perfectly, which we cannot wait for. But just to make things even more interesting, while you're listening to that, Joe always delivers a quiz. He is a fantastic quiz master, great person to know, because when it comes to Christmas and the quiz goes on, you can rely on Dr. Beat to put a beauty together, and he's done it again tonight. We've heard a little teaser, but Joe, would you like to tell us about the quiz again this week and play out our questions?
Okay, so pentatonic scales are not only good for writing great vocal melody, they're also great for writing great riffs. Guitarists love them. And so for tonight's quiz, I'm going to be playing you the riff, the instrumental bit. Mostly guitar. I think I've got 4 guitar examples and 2 keyboard examples of these secondary hooks, the melody bit that isn't the vocal. But because these songs, again, are so well known, I'm going to play them backwards again. Not going to lie, Gordon, I do think the quiz is a little more difficult this week. I've been seeing a few people just acing it every week.
Yep.
You know who you are. So I've ramped it up a little here, but, I haven't broken any rules. They're all big hits. So let's get into it. Question 1. This band formed in the 60s and they released this recording in 1975. This is the riff. Name the song. So when you hear that melody, you just need to sing it backwards to yourself. For question 2, this artist is from Lexington, Kentucky in the USA, and he released this track in 2015. Listen out for the twangy guitar riff played backwards. Dum, dum, dum. For question 3, this is a band from Texas, a rock band from Texas. I don't think that's giving much away. They released this recording in 1983. Listen out for this riff. Question 4, these artists came from Detroit, Michigan, and they released this in 1964. Now, this is a super short example. You're going to hear a bit of vocal, a bit of melody, and then a bit of bass. And of course, played forwards, those things will be in the reverse order. So question 4, 1964. So you sing that to yourself, do, 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 and then sing it backwards. What could be easier? Question 5. This is a band, British band from the Wirral in Merseyside, and they released this track in 2005. It was a top 10 hit in the UK, and name the song. And for question 6, this is a rock track from 1981. It's a band that was actually just up the road from where I'm sitting now. They're from Worcester, Massachusetts. This was released in 81. Name the song. So I think it's tougher, but you be the judge.
Do you know what, Joe? I think Pentatonics might be my secret weapon here. I've done all right here. If you'd like to get in touch and enter the quiz tonight, 85058 on text, 08085 909 693 on WhatsApp. Neil McFarlane in Chester has gone very early, and I think he's on the money so far. So, yeah, please do get in touch. We will give you a reminder in about half an hour's time with all of those quiz questions, so you can play along at home, pen and paper ready, and then 85058, you can get involved. Right, Joe, brilliant stuff. I should say, Joe, before we get into this tonight, I was pulled aside in a queue for something, for a train, I think it was, and somebody said, can you ask Dr. Joe if he was trained as a musician with theory, or he just found music and played it and then learned about all of that stuff later in life? So that was my question that I have to ask of somebody who approached me at Waverley Station in Edinburgh only last week.
Oh, yeah, happy to answer that. It's the second one. So I kind of had piano lessons when I was a kid and it didn't really take. And then I started playing the acoustic guitar when I was 10. And by the time I was 11, I wanted to be in a bar band. So I spent all of my teens like just working out pop songs off the radio and off cassettes. And then playing in lots of covers bands and running the rehearsals and so on. So I got really into chords at that time, but I didn't read music at all. Managed to scrape through my A-level music without really being able to read music. I actually wrote some compositions and notated them, because writing music is actually easier than reading music, or at least I found it so at the time. And then I went and did a music degree that I still really didn't have to read music for. And then many, many years later, got deeply into the academic study of song analysis and PhD and all the rest of it. But that was many years later. But the best musical training that I had was actually 4 years working for a guitar magazine. I worked for Total Guitar in the mid-90s. I think I mentioned that to you, Gordon. And just having to transcribe music off the record every day to work out how the riffs go, kind of thing. It was such a good discipline to get your ear together. But no, it's still the classic way you can get a guitarist to turn down, and that includes me. If the amp is too loud, just give them some sheet music, as the joke goes.
There we go. There's your Spinal Tap Joe Bennett quote for the evening from Five Live. But that's a great answer, Joe. And again, I think it's quite encouraging, isn't it? You can pick up an instrument and find your way, and then later on you can probably transpose that or work that out and help you understand the theory a little bit.
Yeah, I think guitar especially, it's a very rewarding instrument in the early days, because, and it's probably like a lot of people in the Five Live listeners have got a guitar in the attic and, have enjoyed that feeling of just learning 3 or 4 chords and strumming along to a song that you know. It's a very accessible chordophone, but obviously there then comes a point, if you really want to study it, where you sadly have to know the names of the notes on the fingerboard and all of that, the theory stuff. But you can get quite a long way on guitar without doing that.
Yeah, well, I should give a little shout out to my late music teacher, Mr. Clemson, who often sat with a bemused little Scottish boy explaining crotchets and minims and semi-quavers when I really probably wanted to be playing football outside. I wish I'd paid more attention. So a little nod there. Right, Joe, let's crack on, shall we? For your first choice, I think it's fair to say we're going to go back a bit, nearly 250 years, in fact, and it's something many of us will know. It's the Skye boat song. Have a listen to this.
Sing me a song of a lass that is gone. Say, could that lass be I? Mary of soul, she sailed on a day over the sea to Skye. Billow and breeze, islands and seas, mountains of rain and sun. All that was good, all that was fair, all that was me is gone. Sing me a song of a lass that is gone. Say, could that lass be I? Mary of souls, she sailed on a day.
So there we go. Outlander and the Skye boat song. It's a newer version of a very, very old song. And Joe, I just remembered actually, you told me, did you not do a bit of work around old Scottish songs and spent a bit of time north of the border, did you not?
Yeah, so the Burnsong project that you might be familiar with, sort of a local arts project, I believe it's still going strong, partly to obviously celebrate Burns' songwriting, but actually the Burnsong project was always about new songwriting in the spirit of Burns. So it was Scottish songwriters, and I learned a lot about Scots Gaelic writing and about that folk tradition in the time when I was up in Dumfriesshire, particularly. Running songwriting workshops with some of the Burnsong competition winners. So yeah, there's a whole world. I don't think there is a Scots town you can go to without bumping into a folk club. So certainly that was my experience out there. So yeah, Skye boat song, obviously a very ancient one, and I dare say, like the song we were talking about last week, on another that probably came to you with Mother's Milk as a Scot.
Yes.
I chose that one. That was actually from the TV show Outlander, so nice modern production, but a sort of fairly authentic performance of it. So yes, it's an example of a major pentatonic melody. So they're in D in this version. So here's your scale of D pentatonic, and the next octave. So just as a reminder, I'm missing out that 4 and 7, so it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and then the octave. So it starts on the 5 here. So you can hear it has all these leaps in it. It's always leaping about. And that's one of the things that a pentatonic scale gives you. And what that tends to mean, certainly in a classic, enduring folk song like this, is that we remember it very easily. There's something just that's very natural about it. And I think sort of ancient. I don't know whether it's because I've seen too many movies where they played pentatonic folk of a drone shot over hills and valleys. But I think we associate these big, wide open scales with wide open landscapes and ancient lands.
Just I think Who Wants to Live Forever by Queen for Highlander. Was that another one? I don't know. I'm trying to think if that's pentatonic, but it's probably not. The thing is, Joe, with songs that go back centuries, how sure are we that we're using the original tune? How can you be sure that that's still true to the original?
Yeah, well, the answer really is don't know, because for a time, all ancient songs only come to us through the oral tradition. So they're taught generation to generation and they get adapted over time, lyrics and music. That one was sort of set in stone, I think, in 1884. In fact, I put a copy of the original sheet music on the blog post that I mentioned, because obviously it's out of copyright. We can freely share it on the internet. So the earliest definitive version we know about is from 1884, but we know that there was a Gaelic song in the 1700s, not least because of the Jacobite connection, over the sea to Skye, the escape of Bonnie Prince Charlie. But the tune is apparently based on a Gaelic song, Cuckoo of the Tree. Now, Gordon, in the show notes, I actually sent you the listing of Cuckoo in the Tree written in Gaelic. I cannot speak Gaelic. Do you want to have a go?
No, I was really hoping you wouldn't ask me to do this. Iram? I don't know. I can't do it. Sorry, Joe. We'll say the Gaelic song, the rowing song.
Right.
Cuchach na Croava. There you go.
That sounded authentic. It sounded more authentic than it would if I was doing it. So yeah, and that's this. So this is a great. I think this is like an underarm bowl of pentatonic, an introduction, because I think it's a decent demo. You can really hear the sort of width of the pentatonic scale and the memorability. Is that a word? Of the melody that it creates.
It's a lovely, lovely song, isn't it? And Robert Louis Stevenson, did he write lyrics to it after the original song? Do you know which way around that happened, Joe?
Yeah, apparently he wasn't fully aligned with the Jacobite politics on it. So I think he pastoralized it a little bit. But so the version I played there was it was regendered for the female singer, but it was the Robert Louis Stevenson lyric we were hearing in that version.
Well, Joe, you always cover a lot of ground with your selections, and I think this may be the first time ever that we've gone from a little bit of the Skye Boat song into something completely different. So Scottish folk, and we're now going to move seamlessly to the Jimi Hendrix Experience, and this is Voodoo Child. So there we go. How brilliant was that? I just wanted to play the whole song there, Joe. I feel so cruel cutting it off. Absolutely brilliant to listen to. I really hope you're going to have a stab at playing some of this in a second as well, because there is a guitar strap around Joe's neck, which is telling me very nice guitar. I should also say Joe's playing it in the conventional fashion and not the Jimi Hendrix fashion. So, Joe, here's the challenge. Can you just turn that upside down and back to front and play it for me, please?
Actually, that whole behind the head thing, I did used to do it as a teen in many bar bands. It is actually not as hard as it looks because your hands are still in the same position sort of ratio in relation to the guitar. Yeah. So as long as you can balance the strat on your shoulder, because they can be quite heavy, then it's actually possible to do it. You're not actually playing backwards, you're playing forwards. You just can't see your own fingers.
Well, for everybody at home,
but
Joe
no,
is
I'm
playing
not
this.
doing that.
We could have played along with that. Joe's doing all of this behind his head tonight. So, Joe, are you going to tell me here that there's a link between Jimi Hendrix Experience and Voodoo Child and the Skye boat song? Surely not.
There really is, but you just got to listen past the production. So in the music theory, there really is. So Jimi Hendrix is playing the minor pentatonic scale there. We heard the major pentatonic scale. So so you can hear them back to back. This he's in the key of E flat. So I'll play this. This is G flat major pentatonic. Okay, so that's very much like the Skye boat song kind of vibe. But if you take the sixth note of the scale and you start there, you actually get a minor scale. And past the octave. So you get a major scale or a minor scale if you just go down one note lower. And as every rock guitarist knows, and I'm sure there's a lot of rock guitarists among the 5 Live listeners who already know this, pentatonic shapes are very, very satisfying to play on the electric guitar. So it's a shame we faded out Jimi Hendrix to hear me. That's not, that's I feel no pressure. But yeah, the bit that we didn't hear there, just for fun, is the famous wah-wah pedal, which is a big part of the sound on that record. So he uses an unpitched mute, which is just go. So you just grab the strings so they don't vibrate, and then he just rocks the wah-wah pedal. So we get that famous, let me grab my wah-wah pedal here. You know, that sort of thing. But the riff itself is just minor pentatonic. That's the underlying scale, and the riff, he just rocks the wah-wah pedal in time with it. So you can hear it's just the same notes of the minor pentatonic scale, and even when he goes up the octave, I can't play the big crashing chord here because he's in a different tuning from me, but the notes are the same, and the same with the vocal melody. Well, I stand up next to a mountain. So he's up and down the minor pentatonic scale, and I think there is a kind of an emotional connection between Voodoo Child, Slight Return, and the Skye boat song, and they're both kind of epically timeless. Mm-hmm. It's just there's more sort of, I don't know, mystical vibe to the production in Voodoo Child because it's so experimental and groundbreaking from 1968. But melodically, both pentatonic scales.
Yep. And Joe, we're getting loads of questions saying, is it child or child? Can Joe clarify that for us as well?
Okay, so Voodoo Child spelt chili was I think the first one, and Voodoo Child Slight Return, it's all to do with Hendrix's lyric sheet. That's the one that everybody knows. That's the one we were listening to there. Voodoo Child with a D, brackets, Slight Return, I believe. We had this debate endlessly in the Guitar Magazine years, you know. People call it Voodoo Child, and it's the Slight Return version.
Absolutely brilliant stuff. Joe Satriani said it's the greatest piece of electric guitar work ever recorded. Would you agree?
I think sonically there's a lot. That's a very defensible statement. It's with Hendrix for me. It's not about the masterful technique, even though it is masterful. It's about the sound world that he creates, and he creates it so early. 1968, that record. It's it sounds like he's chopping down a mountain with the edge of his hand. It's right there in the production and the guitar sound, the effects pedals. So sonically, I definitely would agree with Joe Satriani on that.
Joe, would you mind just for a second playing the descending minor pentatonic scale you just played for us a second? Because I think that was a very famous song as well, wasn't it?
Well, I hope pentatonics, when people hear them, will remind you of a ton of stuff. So here's a minor pentatonic scale, 1 octave descending.
What song is that? That reminds me of a song. It'll come to me in a second.
Could be a ton of things. I don't know. Play it faster? I don't know. Whatever it's triggering in your memory, Gordon.
There's something in my brain that's connecting to a song there, which I'm going to have to try and remember it by the end of the show. But this is what the joy of this, Joe, and the Pentatonics is, that you can hear so many songs because it is quite simple, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. So, and then it's just a question of, can you use the other tools of melody writing, repetition, self-imitation, rhythmic values, interval choices, to just create something that's really memorable? Because it is quite difficult to be original, because people love pentatonic scales so much, lots of composers use them.
Well, and that's Joe's other expertise. And while we mentioned Joe Satriani, Joe, just as a little side note, we've had a message from Ashley. May I suggest Coldplay's Viva La Vida and Joe Satriani, If I Could Fly, for a sound-alike pairing? I believe money may have changed hands after a court decision. So while we were talking about Satriani, while we're talking about guitarists, there's one for Joe to scribble down to look at another time. Right, we're going to move on now because we're going to return to the world of folk. But we're only going to go back to the 80s this time. The song is Dirty Old Town, and here is the brilliant version by the Pogues.
I met my love by the gasworks wall, dreamed a dream by the old canal. I kissed my girl by the factory wall. Dirty old town, dirty old town. Clouds are drifting across the moon.
Excellent stuff. And Joe, we're going to hear in a second the original version by Ewan MacColl, but what should we be listening out for that's different?
Well, fairly obviously the production is very different. So the Ewan MacColl version that we're going to hear, he wrote it in 1949. The version that I asked you guys to play is from 1983, which was released, I believe, after his death in the end. So with the Pogues version, it's very much a kind of a jug bar band approach. Everything's in 4/4. It's really it's very accessible. And, the Pogues version is certainly got the most streams. It's the most famous cover of Dirty Old Town, although a lot of other people have done it. Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, Frank Black, Steve Earle, Dubliners, a bunch of folkies actually have done it, something of a folk standard. So there you were hearing the Pogues version, which is sort of full band. The Ewan MacColl one, which we're going to hear now, is it's done on acoustic guitar, and it's got this lovely riff. It's something like this. It's in E-flat tuning, so it's... So it's much more sort of finger-style arrangement. And the thing to listen out for is, if you're keeping the same key, they are in different keys, the Pogues version goes, dirty old town, dirty old town. And on the final hook, it goes to the minor. You can hear that minor chord. Whereas the Ewan MacColl version goes, dirty old town, dirty old, and it goes to a major 6th chord, town. And to me, that chord is a little bit more wistful. The song is famously about Salford. It was, we'll talk about the origin of the song in a minute, but so I would say, as you listen to the Ewan MacColl version, listen out for the sort of wistful feeling that you get on the final Dirty Old Town.
Excellent. And as somebody who spends a lot of their life in Salford with the team who make this show, this is going to be extremely pertinent. Right, have a listen. Ewan MacColl, Dirty Old Town.
my love on the gasworks croft. Dreamed a dream by the old canal. Kissed my girl by the factory wall. Dirty old town, dirty old town. I heard a siren from the docks, saw a train set the night on fire, smelt the spring on the smoky wind. Dirty old town, dirty.
There we go,
old
Ewan
town.
MacColl with quite a distinctive vibrato, I think you would call that. Am I right, Joe?
Yeah, it is pretty unique. Actually, that's a slightly earlier version than the one I thought you were going to play. I think that one could even be from the 50s. Certainly by the recording quality, it seems a little bit more sort of old school and mono. But it does have that major sixth quality. Dirty old town. And the other thing I love about the Ewan MacColl version, he does a thing that a bunch of the old blues guys used to do. Robert Johnson in the 30s, Blind Lemon, and more recently John Lee Hooker, which is to hell with 4/4 time. You know, sometimes he'll just throw in a bar, a 3/4 or a 2/4 or a 5/4, and he just keeps going till he's ready to sing the next bit. And of course, if you're accompanying yourself, you can do that because you just change the chord when it feels right to change the chord.
Is there a change in the lyrics as well?
Yes. So there's been a whole bunch of lyric changes over the years. It was originally written in 1949 for a play produced by Joan Littlewood, who was his first wife, and it was set in a north of England industrial town. But there's different lyrics from his version, which differed from the version in the play, which had a famous long-lost verse that was recently rediscovered. The Pogues really simplify it. The Ewan MacColl version opens with, "I found my love by the gasworks croft." And the Pogues version opens with, "I met my love by the gasworks wall." So, you know, in the Ewan MacColl version, he's discovering romance. In the Pogues version, they're already dating. And I'm not sure if Shane MacGowan was just forgetting bits of the lyric in the take, but he rhymes gasworks wall with factory wall in verse 1, which Ewan MacColl doesn't do. So I'm not quite sure. I don't want to guess. But I'm very fond of the Pogues version because, you know, like a lot of people my age, it was around when I was a teen and all the cool folk people were into it.
And produced by Elvis Costello, I think, wasn't it, that record? Yes, it was.
It was, yeah. It's a really it's a great sort of updating production of the time of what was, as you heard there, a much more primitive production in the original.
And for football fans listening, it is the walk-on tune for Salford City FC, which has a lot of significance in Salford, not Manchester, in Salford. Brilliant, Joe. What a great choice. Thank you so much for that one tonight. Again, we've covered a lot of time, and I wondered how long it would be, Joe, before we bumped into the next band you'd chosen, because again, it felt like this band were on an awful lot when I was growing up. So the next choice is more famous for its video, perhaps, than the song itself. But this is a bit of Godley Creme. It's 1985. And the song is magical. It's called Cry.
You don't know
Absolutely brilliant. Godley Creme, 1985. Joe, I'm so glad you chose this because I was born in 1980 and these songs are really vivid memories for me of the first music I remember, and I think the production of songs around that time, like Tears for Fear, Godley and Creme, there's something really rich and magical about it for a developing child's brain, and it just makes me incredibly happy. So thank you very much. It's probably quite a sad song, but it makes me really happy. What's the secret?
You made me want to cry.
Yeah, no, what's the secret about that, Joe? Why has that affected my childlike brain so much?
Well, I mean, it is a great production, and it's mid '80s, so there's digital recording coming in at that time, and a bunch of synths. There's a clavier synths on that one, so there's particular sounds that are of their time. That sort of spanky Strat acoustic electric guitar part that we hear that plays the main theme. That's very much a sound of the 80s, but it's the power that pop music has, isn't it, Gordon? It takes you back to where you were. But also, I think one of the reasons why, dare I say, it's making you happy is because it's major pentatonic.
Yes.
To our theme. So they're in E, and so the E major pentatonic scale, I'll give you 2 octaves here. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, then the octave, and you can keep going. And they start on the 5 here, and the guitar actually plays the same melody as the vocal, which is the old pop trick that when the vocal comes in, you already know the melody. So the whole thing, major pentatonic, starts on the 5. It's very scalic, and then it goes down again. And then back up again. And they sort of work out where the high point can be, because you can't infinitely go up in the melody. It goes up to the major third. So it goes over quite a wide melodic range, and it's just, I think that's one of the reasons that it's timeless. I was a teen when this came out, and I also have very fond memories of it. It has the famous video of the transitioning faces and all of that, and they were very famous for that. But of course, as a musicologist, I'm interested in the notes more than the visuals. But it's also beautifully sung. It's a nice lyric. It's a fantastic production. I'm amazed it wasn't a bigger hit, actually.
Yeah.
Because personally, I'm very fond of it.
Number 16 on the Billboard Hot Chart, and also it does have a very famous double though, because it was on Miami Vice and it was also on Grand Theft Auto 4, which means if you've been on Liberty Rock Radio, for any gamers listening, that's a big moment. The song has definitely cut through. What a lovely choice, Joe. It's brilliant. And one of my biggest frustrations in life, Joe, and this is a slight aside, is that when I put the clavier synthesizer noise on the synthesizers I got as a kid, I could never make songs like that. It's a huge frustration in life for people who aren't musically gifted enough. So anyway, that's just another little aside. Right, Joe, we're going to move into a bit of pop now from more recent times, right? So let's get right up to date and have a listen to some 2024 Beyoncé. This is Texas Hold'em.
This ain't Texas, ain't no hold'em. So lay your cards down, 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 down. So park your Lexus and throw your keys up. Stick around, round, 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 round. Stick around. And I'll be damned if I can't slow dance with you. Come pour some sugar on me, honey, too. It's a real live boogie and a real live hold down. Don't be come take it to the floor now. Woo! There's a tornado in my city. At the base.
There we go. Bit of Beyoncé 2024, Texas Hold'em. Joe, why have you gone for that song? I know you love your pop, but why that one?
Well, it was, Beyoncé Goes Country, and that album sort of took over the world earlier this year. And it's so authentic. Everything Beyoncé does is authentic, and she does it like she means it. But, it's because she's Beyoncé, of course, she broke so many barriers. It's so rare to see a black woman in the country charts doing so well historically anyway. So breaking with a bunch of norms, but it's a great major pentatonic. So we're in D, And the bit that we heard there was also a major pentatonic riff. Doesn't sound quite the same on my electric guitar here. So it's actually played on a nylon-strung peg banjo by the musician Rhiannon Giddens, who's a real sort of darling of the contemporary folk world, particularly here in the US. Pretty much all of the melody, she slows in a couple of fours, but nearly all of the melody is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. And again, I think anyone who's heard that song once can sing it right back. This ain't Texas. There's the whole scale. Just an octave all the way down. And it just makes it so super memorable. Great song.
Absolutely brilliant. And country icon Dolly Parton recognised the impact and said Beyonce's tune was fantastic and beautiful. And let's not forget, Beyonce is from Houston, Texas, isn't she, Joe? So it must be in her blood, that sound, that feel to that song.
Yeah, it certainly does. Well, again, they sought out the very finest musicians. Of course, she's going to do that. She's Beyonce, to make it sound so authentic. But in fact, going back to our long talk about the clave many months ago when we did the TR-808, there's a clave in there along with fiddle, banjo, but with Beyonce's signature lush, slick harmonies.
Excellent stuff. Right, Joe, I think we're going to interrupt this section because I would like to give people a reminder, because people are asking to have the quiz one more time. You've baffled, stumped and confused more than a few people. So shall we give them another listen, Joe?
Let's do it. Okay, so to our quiz. All of these are instrumental sections of songs, and they are pentatonic riffs played on guitar or keyboard. I'm going to give you the year. So this track was released in 1975 by this British band. For number 2, this artist is from Lexington, Kentucky, USA, and he released this song in 2015. Listen out for the twangy guitar part. Dum, dum, dum. So for number 3, this band were from Houston, Texas. This is a great riff from 1983. Number 4, this vocal group from Detroit, Michigan released this track in 1964. Sing the melody backwards. For number 5, this is a British band from the Wirral in Merseyside, and they released this track as top 10 single in 2005. Da, 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 da. Just sing that the other way around. And for number 6, this band from Worcester, Massachusetts, just up the road from me, they released this in 1981. And listen out for the keyboard riff. There we have it, 6 songs.
Excellent stuff. 85058 if you'd like to have a stab. 08085 909 693 on WhatsApp if you'd like to have a go at that. A very short point of order, Joe. I've been picked up here. I'm enjoying the music with Dr. Joe. I don't think you said who the female singer was on the Outlander song. I loved her voice but didn't hear any name credit. Please say it now on air. She deserves having that mention. Thank you very much, Viv, for that message. Joe, was it was Bear McCreary, was it? And Rhea Yarborough, am I right?
Rhea Yarborough, that's right. There's the performance credited on the Outlander version from the TV show. And absolutely right, I agree with that listener. What a beautiful vocal.
Lovely vocal. Rhea Yarborough, if you want to look her up. Now, Joe, we would like to talk about sound-alikes. Now, this week's suggestion came from a listener. We wanted you to have a little listen to Taxman by the Beatles and Start by the Jam. And as always, if you've got a suggestion like this, remember to get in touch. Gordon@bbc.co.uk. Text us 85058. So, Joe, this is quite a simple one, isn't it?
It's a simple one, and I don't know whether the listener was reading my mind, because it's pentatonic as well.
Yes.
We didn't plan it, but it ended up being a pentatonic riff. So it's Taxman by the Beatles, which famously has the bass riff that goes like this. And sometimes McCartney varies it. Sometimes does that little hammer on. And the song that unashamedly, and actually admitted to pretty much copying the bass riff wholesale, was Start by the Jam. So to begin with, let's just play them back to back. They move through different keys, so try and listen past that. You're listening out for the bass riff, initially played here obviously by Paul McCartney.
Let me tell you how it will be. There's one for you, 19 for me. 'Cause I'm the Taxman. Yeah, I'm the Taxman.
And from the Jam LP Sound Affects in 1980, this track is Start.
Feels as desperate as me. Oh, what you give is what you get. It doesn't matter if we never meet again. What we have said will always remain. If we get through for 2 minutes only, it will be a start.
So fairly obviously, it's not an identical bass riff, because I think a lot of the time when people hear Taxman for the first time, they think it goes like this, and it really doesn't. It goes, but because we hear this this electric guitar chord on the backbeat doubling with the snare, a lot of people think it has that extra note in it, apparently including Bruce Foxton of the Jam, because when they copied it for Start, he actually puts the extra note in. So it's a much more sort of literal and it's arguably less inventive than McCartney, who actually during the duration of the track, he actually varies it quite a bit. It's really masterful. Although the story goes that George Harrison didn't like it. He said it was too busy for the song. And McCartney had his way. And so, because of course George Harrison wrote the song. And it is a very busy bass line. But I think McCartney was proved right by history there.
That's amazing.
So, of course, they both at least get to a chord of D7, which means there are bits of it that do overlap. So, inevitably, Gordon, I've had a go at figuring out whether I can play them both at once. You can't quite do it because of the chord, so I had to cheat a little bit by transposing Weller's and Foxton's harmony vocal a little bit. But this is a 30-odd second track that I made called You Must Pay the Tax on Your Jam. And I think we've got George on the left and the other Paul on the right. Okay, so if you're listening on headphones, you should be able to hear them both in the mix. Bit of a remix here.
Start.
Let me tell you,
It's what you get.
let me tell you,
My name. It's not important
for you,
It's not important
for me.
Start.
Yeah,
Start.
yeah,
Start. And what you give is what you get.
'cause I'm the Taxman.
It doesn't matter.
'Cause I'm the Taxman.
Start.
So I felt a bit guilty messing and mangling up those two classics to quite the same extent there, but I kind of had to mash them up a fair bit to make them fit.
It's absolutely brilliant, Joe. And I tell you, our EP, I say our EP, Joe's EP, with a guest appearance from me every now and again, it's getting bigger and bigger. That was fantastic. Thank you for putting that together, Joe. And remember, get in touch with us, Gordon at bbc.co.uk, if you have sound-alikes. It doesn't always have to be 2 songs, it could be 3 or 4 that you think sound alike. And remember, Joe, we had that suggestion earlier, Coldplay's Viva La Vida and Joe Satriani, If I Could Fly. There's a suggestion for another day. Right, Joe, what do you reckon? Is it time for the answers to the quiz?
Sure, happy to do that.
Let's do it.
So, we've got 6 songs. Each of them, you're listening out for the instrumental bit. I think a couple of them are super easy and a couple of them are really quite tricky, especially the slower ones. So I'm going to play them backwards, and the trick is to, if you can in real time, learn the melody and sing them back. So, let's reveal all. Actually, go for the answers now. So this is the track from 1975 that I played. So we had that da do do, and play that backwards. You get. And I think a lot of people would have got that was, of course, Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd.
Same old fears. Wish you were here.
Number 2, very slow tempo, so you're listening for this effect of backwards reverbed drums. Same with the guitar. Quite tricky to make out. It was released in 2015. The artist was Chris Stapleton from Kentucky, USA, which means the track was Tennessee Whiskey.
Oh, that's smooth. It's Tennessee whiskey. You're as sweet as strawberry wine.
For number 3, bit of 80s rock. Backwards, it sounded like this. And forward, you could hear all that growling through the beards. It was, of course, ZZ Top from 1983. The song was Sharp Dressed Man.
Come running just as they can. Every girl crazy about his sharp dressed man.
For number 4, our super short example. The vocal group were the Temptations, 1964. The song was My Girl.
My girl, my girl, my girl. Talking about my girl, my girl. I've got so much honey.
And a bit of mischief for the Wirral Band for 2005. Listen to this riff backwards. Do 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 do, or put another way, do 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 do. It's the same riff, but it's a different song. So that was the Coral from 2005 and their track In the Morning.
Plans to be leaving in the morning.
And finally, from 1981, I think the keyboard sound and the hand claps might have given it away. Wonderful bit of major pentatonic wizardry there. The song was Centerfold. It was, of course, the Jay Giles Band, 1981.
My blood runs cold. My memory has just been sold. My angel is the centerfold. Angel is the centerfold. My blood runs cold.
So, Gordon, was I right? Were there a couple that were too difficult, or did anybody ace it?
Well, I think congratulations to you this week, Dr. Beat, because you have delivered the goods. Let me tell you now. Totally stumped this week, says Kim, 0 out of 6. The quiz, not a clue tonight, Gordon and Dr. Beat. Far too hard. I only got the last one, Centrefold, Ian and Altrincham. Even Shrewsbury, well, 4 out of 6. Shrewsbury, sorry, 4 out of 6. I'll have a stab at 3. Wish You Were Here, Sharp Dressed Man, and Centrefold. Stephen Lee, hard lines. Stephen Stewart in 3.5. I'm afraid, but Joe, you might be disappointed to know that Neil McFarlane in Chester has completed it. He got all 6. Fantastic effort, Neil McFarlane. And Joe,
Well
I think
done,
it deserves
Neil.
a bit of a pat on the back, doesn't it?
It really does. Fantastic.
Excellent.
I honestly thought that was going to be too hard this week, so well done, Neil.
That was brilliant, Joe. And you know what? It's been a joy having you on this week. We didn't get round, Joe. I feel quite guilty. We missed out 2 of your pentatonics that we were going to do tonight. But I think there's room in this for another one, isn't there? We missed out.
Pentatonic scale, it's one of, like I say, it's timeless. It's across every human culture. We could do another bunch of pentatonics either next week or another week. I'm very happy to bring them back, because there's a couple of real corkers that we didn't get to today. So let's do that.
We'll do that. And if you've got a suggestion for a theme for Joe to investigate, we would love that too. Please do get in touch, 85058 or gordon@bbc.co.uk. Dr. Beat, thank you very much. You got much planned this week?
I'm preparing for my teaching, because the American semester starts very soon, so lesson planning, back to the day job a little bit.
Excellent. So expect really heavily produced material for the musicologist section next week as Joe procrastinates on that big moment. Thank you very much, Dr. Beat, and thank you to the team for getting us on air tonight. Dotton Adebayo is up next. Over to you, Dotton.
The voice of the UK.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.